Today I'm going to introduce dynamic panels. So we're going to do a few exercises, but the first thing I want to do is I want to kind of take you out of the complexity of Axure as a software, because sometimes Axure just kind of gets too complex, and you open this software and it could be completely overwhelming. So I like to work when I teach. I really like to work through analogies. It's kind of like, okay, think about it this way. Since I've been teaching Axure, one of the things I notice is that people have a tendency to kind of try to map it into one software they feel really strong about. So for example, Photoshop. So it's the typical, like they ask me, is dynamic panels just like layers in Photoshop and things like that? So one of the things I'm doing is I'm not gonna map it to specific software, but I am going to just kind of show you something that may help you kind of get it from a completely different concept. So yeah. I hope you're all ready for this. So I'm going to start by showing you a video. Have you seen those documentaries when they show you all videos and they talk about something completely different? I just kind of love when they do that. So I'm just trying to apply that idea today. All right. So sit back and relax.
It's as trim as a briefcase and as easy to carry as a portable radio. The perfect way to show and enjoy the color slides you took last summer. It's the new Kodak 300 color slide projector. Not only is it the smartest looking projector you can buy, but the Kodak 300 is a pleasure to use, with easy to reach controls right here on top, and a new Ready-Matic changer, the smoothest and simplest ever designed. Its wide-angle lens shows your slides big and bright in full color in any room, large or small. The new Kodak 300 projector in your choice of 2 color combinations costs just $64.50, or as little as $6.50 down. It's also available with an automatic magazine-type changer, and because it's made by Kodak, you know it's good.
All right. Okay, back on track. Okay, so what is going on here? What am I trying to say? So I actually grew up watching slides like that. How many of you actually have one of those at home and watch slides? Yeah, okay, good. It may date us a few of us. Why not? Yeah, and I absolutely love it as a little girl, turning off the whole living room and just watching, like almost kind of like cinema. And the concept is simple, right? You have a slide, you have a picture, you wanna look at the next slide, you need to change, right? And you see the women doing it all manually. All right, so where am I going with this? You'll see. Dynamic panels are kind of this concept, okay, if you think about it. So in dynamic panels, they live in a page. Then you have this as a widget. And then for this widget, you have all these different states. And think of every state as literally a slide. So you cannot have 2 slides showed at the same time. You can only show 1 slide. And there's many ways to change that slide in Axure. Okay, you can do it manually. You can do it through triggering a button or things like that. So I'm going to go deeper into that. But just kind of think of it that way. So I always like bringing some of my puzzles. Today, I'm going to bring a really, really simple puzzle. But the idea is to kind of start getting you up to speed as to what a dynamic panel is and just kind of play with it a little bit. If you want to follow this in your mobile, you can just try to grab the QR code or just follow the bit.ly. You don't have to. I can just show you little by little. However, at the end, whatever I'm going to show you, I'm going to ask you to kind of try it again. And then if you get it right, there's a surprise. So it's up to you. All right. It's the teacher in me. All right. Good. So let me start giving you a quick show of what I'm talking about here. Okay. So, here you are. Okay, so simple. This is a dynamic panel, okay? By the way, if you ever not sure in Axure what things are or where any logic is implied, you can always use these controls and it will highlight them. Did you see how it kind of went a little bit green? Because sometimes we are collaborating with someone else, and sometimes we just need to quickly identify if anything is either a dynamic panel or has some logic involved. So that's just a little trick. Okay, so a dynamic panel, and this is Axure's definition, is a widget that contains and holds other widgets in layers, or what they call states. And you can hide them, you can show them, you can move them, and so on and so forth. So I started thinking about what's the simplest thing you can do with a dynamic panel. And that's kind of the first exercise we're gonna do today. Let me just put this away for a sec. So the simplest thing I thought you could do with a dynamic panel is to just click on it, okay? So I click on it, and do you see the resemblance of the slides? And once again, I click on it. So think of it as going, next slide. This is my visit to London. So it's just that simple, right? You just click on it and it changes. And it's literally a bunch of layers or states that are being shown to you, okay? So one of my theories, and I could be maybe wrong, but one of my theories is that Axure could be very overwhelming. And what I'm trying to do here is to kind of facilitate this complexity and just bringing it a little more kind of relaxed in a way that kind of makes sense. So I'm combining some of the things that you will see here with some of the things you will see once you start clicking down into it. So when you use a dynamic panel, there's lots of things you can kind of trigger for it to happen. You can do something. You can have interactions on click or double click or drag or mouse up or mouse down, things like that. So in this one in particular, the interaction that's going to trigger that change of slide is an on-click event. Okay, so off we go. That's an on-click event. So once we click on that dynamic panel, and again, remember the dynamic panel is everything you see highlighted here. That's a whole dynamic panel. All right. So once you you select on click, and I'll show you how it actually looks on the interface. You need to decide what is it you're clicking on. So when you click, you set another dynamic panel, right? How many times have you been in that situation that you're just carrying along, you're so excited, and then suddenly everything is called the same? So in Axure, you're not forced to name every single thing you're working with, but when you start doing interactions, that's when it just becomes a long list of dynamic panels and you cannot identify it. That could be a real headache sometimes. However, one of the beauty of the concept of clicking on the same thing you're going to actually impact is that Axure gives you the concept of this widget. How many of you have used that, this widget? Okay, good. So what this widget does is that you don't have to remember what you name it, or you don't even have to name it. It's already there for you. Why? Because the interaction is taking place in the exact same thing that you're modifying. So it's kind of like a really quick way to get stuff done, and it actually works really well. I use it quite a bit when I can just use that logic and replicate it really quick through different things. So in this case, it doesn't matter what I call this dynamic panel, because it's just the widget that I'm clicking on, the one I want to modify. The next thing that we need to decide. Now, remember, we're trying to write, or we're trying to kind of put together this interaction. How would this interaction look in the Axure interface? So I know that once I click, I am going to interact with the same thing I clicked on. So that's why it's this widget. And then the next thing is, what is the next slide that I'm going to show? Okay, so just to give you an idea, this is a slide 3, which is samples. So the next slide is actually going to go back to being a slide 0, slide 1, 2, and 3. So when it comes to choosing the next slide, you can either choose one specific one, but what that would do is once you click on it and you move to the next slide, when you click on it again, would anything happen? No, nothing will happen because you're already there, right? So one of the things that I really like about Axure is that it gives you the ability to build things really, really fast, and it gives you a few things that you can just kind of not have to pick something in particular. It lets you toggle, it lets you wrap. So this is a really good example. So if you were to choose the next slide and then mix it up with wrap from the last to the first, you will get this interaction. And it's actually really, really fast to put it together. I don't need to know the name of the dynamic panel. All I need to know is that I'm going forward in a way because I'm going to the next slide, and that once I reach the end of the slides, I wrap and I go around and I start again. Okay? Any questions so far? Okay. All right, so I have it right here. This is my, what I'm gonna do next is I'm going to show you how it actually translates my funny looking interface I put together, how it translates to actually Axure. So in this case, I purposely didn't name my dynamic panel. So since we're going really, really basic today, I'm just gonna show you really quick. If you go here, you choose dynamic panel, you drop it, there you go, you have a dynamic panel, okay? That's lesson number one. Now, the next thing I wanna show you is that this dynamic panel, for example, lives here. Now, if you were to play with this, you actually can change what the first slide would look like, okay? So I want you to really think of this as that old looking machine, the slides machine that I show you. It's kind of like showing you the first one and then the next one will come and so on and so forth. So when you do that next, that pretty much means next slide. And that's why I thought that machine was kind of such a good analogy to show what a dynamic panel actually, kind of the anatomy of a dynamic panel, if I may say that. Okay, so sometimes in Axure, we work on all of these different states, and because they're hidden in the background, so think about some poles and tower bridge and so on and so forth, they're in the background, and you kind of can see how it would all come together. All you need to do is just drag it to the top, and then you will see it there. And then you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I think that's gonna work out. So that's one thing you can do. Now I shuffle all my cards now, but that's all right, my slides. Okay, so we may not see it in the same order. Oh, there it is. Okay, so how do we bring this concept to here? So all we need to do is make sure you select the dynamic panel that has the interaction, that holds the interaction. You double click on click. Now, this is the most tricky bit. There's so much to choose from. This is kind of like a Chinese restaurant menu. What do we go for? Now, the nice thing about Axure is that they've done a really good job kind of letting you know where to put your focus, because these are all widgets. These are dynamic panels, variables, repeaters, blah, blah, blah. So just focus on this section right here. And actually, from an interaction perspective, you can only do two things with a dynamic panel itself. You can either set the state, which means go, change it, or you can just resize it, okay? So not much to choose from there. So in this case, I'm going to just set the state. And now this is actually when it gets interesting, because I have just chose this, so it's selected right here. And then from here, remember I show you like 3D dynamic panels. Well, in this case, I only have 2. But, well, you know, actually, I have one now that I think about it. So before I go there, I'm going to show you something really interesting, because this is actually a reason for a lot of people to get a little bit lost. I just drop one dynamic panel, I just drop another dynamic panel, and I just drop another dynamic panel. I have how many dynamic panels? 4 dynamic panels in my Axure interface. Okay, so going back to this, remember, go to the dynamic panel to set, I do this all the time, is the state, not the size. Okay, and then from here, you have a really nice collection of lots of unnamed dynamic panels. So which one of all of these is the one that I want to interact with? That's when sometimes you go, oh, I have to close this, and I have to name it, and I have to remember what it's named, blah, blah, blah. So just really quick, you can actually hit the name, okay? Which means the way I do it is I only name what I care for. I only name the ones that I'm going to work on. So that's just a little tip. You can just hide everything, and off it goes. So then you can really just look for that thing that you want to interact with. Now, the other thing is, at this stage, because you actually put in the interaction on that very same dynamic panel, you don't really need to know the name. You don't really need to name it because you're interacting with this dynamic panel, the one you chose. All right? So in this case, I don't care how many dynamic panels I have because it is the first one, is the one that says this that I want to interact with. Now, question. How many dynamic panels did I show you? 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How come I have 5?
Because this widget is the same as one of those.
Very good. Exactly. Because here I have this and whatever I want to name this, it becomes the exact same. So what Axure is doing is just, let me just put everything that you put out there, every single dynamic panel, and then let me easily grab like a shortcut for you to grab the one you want. So I'm gonna illustrate that in a second. Then from there, as I said, you go next, you wrap, and then off you go. So I'm going to illustrate what Claire just told us. I'm going to call it CR for carousel. Okay, and I'm going to look at the logic again, which never went through. Here we go. This. So now we have CR and we have this. Would it make any difference if I click on this or I click on that? Absolutely not. I'm talking about the exact same dynamic panel. I am linking the exact same dynamic panel. So what's the benefit of having a this? What's the benefit of having a duplication? Well, there's actually a lot of benefit. Number one, you don't always have to name it. So sometimes you can do things really quick. And number two, if you have a logic that it only applies to the element itself, you can really quickly duplicate that logic. In fact, the way I do this logic, so you will see that as I click on all of these numbers, I only use one logic and I never refer to any buttons. I just say this selected. In fact, I said everything deselected and deselected. And I don't have to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 deselected. Well, actually, I do have to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 deselected, but it's the selected one that I don't have to specify. So this selected, and if I apply that logic here and here and here and here and here, the buttons are going to work absolutely fine, no problem, because I don't have to declare which one I'm clicking on because I'm applying the logic on the one I'm actually clicking on. I know it's kind of a lot, but we'll see. I'll show you how that works. So once again, this is the one I'm doing next. I'm going to wrap, and then I say OK. So after doing this, you'll see what happens to my carousel. Oh, keep in mind that I'm highlighting the dynamic panels. So I click, and off I go. Okay, so that was just very simple. Suddenly we have a carousel. It takes about 30 seconds. Any questions so far? Yeah, go ahead.
How way to randomize what you dislike?
That's a very good question. Let me see. I don't know. I don't think so. Does anyone know the answer to that? A way to randomize. Andy?
You can give them simple names and then use a random function.
Yeah, but...
Random.
Yeah. So you... Yeah. And that would be so much fun, right? Yeah, give them random name, random function. Yeah, but the problem is that when you declare the change of state, oh, you have a value here. And then... that's major surgery there. Right?
I think if you name them 1 to 5 or something, and then you generate one number, and then you convert it to string, it will change to that.
Okay, yeah, I follow that. So Axure gives you a lot of a lot of maths and functions to back up what you do. So yeah, I can follow. So if you were to, just really quick as we're talking about this, if you were to open this, you would see that, well, first is the obvious, but later on you can actually do really fancy stuff, just like we would do in computer science. So you can figure out, you know, the character at a specific index. You can look at the different. What else do we have here? How your string is, and parse your string, and you can do maths, and you can do, I guess in that case we can do like a ceiling that does like the maximum number, and blah. It gets really, really complex at that point, but it is a possibility. Go ahead.
Is there a library for this kind of logic? Is that like kind of in the widget kind of library stuff? Does it present how to do that kind of?
Are you talking about random slides or what I just showed?
What you just showed.
Okay, so what I just showed, the previous meetup we had, we talked about bringing everything from a library perspective. So I'm pretty sure there's libraries out there that would give you this for free. So yeah, that definitely could go into a library, make it into a widget, and then you just get it for free. Yeah, I wouldn't know which one, but yeah, we internally have one at work. Yeah. Any other questions? Nope. Okay, good. I'm gonna move on. Let's do puzzle number 2. So drag this. How many of you has used the dragging functionality? Okay, that's good. Yeah. Last time I went on and on about dragging pieces and stuff, and yeah. Okay, I'm dragging this. All right. How do we do this? I actually really like that. It's kind of cool, and it's really, really, really simple to do it. So again, is this that you're dragging? You're applying the logic in the very thing that you're interacting with. So all you need to do is you need to pick your weapon of choice. What's that event that's gonna help you drag? Is it on click? On load? On drag? It is on drag, right? Okay, so on drag. So on drag allows you to define how you're going to drag it, how the move is going to be. So you can do quite a lot of things. You can drag to a specific place. You can drag by a specific thing. Actually, I went on and on about this last time. You can drag only your X. You can drag only your Y. Or you can just drag. Okay? So in this specific scenario, you just drag. So you move with drag. So what that means, mathematically speaking, is that as you move your X and your Y coordinates, as you drag, your X and Y coordinate will go with your dynamic panel. Okay. Now, what dragging by X means is that it would only honor the X coordinate. So as you go up and down, it's only going to move along, and so on and so forth. It's a lot of fun to play with it. So yeah. Let me get rid of, no, I'll leave the dynamic panels there. So once again, if we were to do that in Axure, we come here, we look at our different events, we double click on the drag, and now this is the case that we don't go into changing the state. We actually go ahead and, oh no, I'm sorry. You do set this, no, you move, sorry, the widget. All right. Yeah, because you're not changing anything, we're actually moving stuff, okay? You move this, okay? And actually, by default, Axure will already have it ready with drag, okay? So it's interesting because it's going back and forth. So what I showed you before had to do with the state of the panels, but in this case, I'm not manipulating the states, those little slides. I'm just manipulating the dynamic panel on its own, and that's when the dynamic panel is considered a widget. So that's what I need to use, this part of all the different actions that I can use. Okay, so again, do I need to bother as to, is it the image, the shape? So look at all the stuff I have there. You know, so in this case, I don't even have to think about it because it's this widget. And by default, it's going to be set up by drag. So once I say, okay, again, I come back here, and then I can drag. Or I should, oh, did I raise? There we go. Ah, the magic is not working today. Oh, I know. I put the logic. Okay, this is actually perfect. Perfect example. What did I do? I put my logic on this dynamic panel. Ah! Do I need to delete it and then do something crazy? No, I literally just copy the case onto here. And the reason why I can do that so simply is because I never gave this a name, and I never linked my logic to this specific dynamic panel. And that is kind of what the point I was trying to make, that I did make a mistake, but what I mean is by keeping it generic with this, you can literally, so let me show you this. I can literally just copy, and I can paste that logic here. I can paste this logic here, and I can paste this logic here. Okay? Now, because I haven't put anything on there, I cannot drag them because I won't be able to see them. So let's do something. Let's put some backgrounds. Okay, I'm gonna open this. Yeah, I wanna open that. Let's put some crazy colors. So there it goes, one of them. There it goes, another one of them. And there it goes, the other one. Okay, so now we'll be able to see them. So dynamic panels allow you to put your very own backgrounds. Okay, so keep in mind these are not actual shapes, these are just the background of the dynamic panel. Okay, so yeah, that was a good mistake because it allowed me to show you the following. Did I went looking for the name and so on and so forth? No, I literally copy and pasted, but that allowed me to make everything draggable. I can drag absolutely everything. Okay, which is kind of nice, isn't it? Any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
How do you set a dragging area?
I'm sorry?
Dragging area, a limit for the dragging.
How do you set up a limit? Yeah. Okay, yeah, I went over that last time. So what you can do is you can have logic at this level and say once you cross certain X coordinate, you don't drag, okay? So you can set up kind of like yeah, like a limit, like a boundary. And as long as you're within that area that you have defined right here, the drag would be honor. The minute you come out of that area, you cannot drag anymore. So that's feasible, that's definitely feasible. Okay, any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Can you have a dynamic panel inside the dynamic panel?
Yeah. You can definitely do this. Yes, you can have nested dynamic panels. Yeah, we had a lot of fun a week ago with that one. I am gonna keep it really basic today, but I hate to say this, but yeah, if you go to my full-day Axure workshop, I will go into like that depth into. And the thing with dynamic panel inside a dynamic panel is that it works really well, but it has its limits. There's a moment where it just completely falls apart, and part of the problem is because at this level you can push and pull everything because they're all on the same page, but that push and pull is not honor in a nested dynamic panel. Really long story short. What I mean by push and pull is, imagine that, this is a really good example, and I'm not gonna go too deep into this, but imagine that this was very, very short, right? And then the next slide, remember, the goes bigger. You can actually, for free, push everything down in Axure if you set up the right ticks as you're going about that, which is brilliant because think about it. Sometimes those dynamic panels are big, are small. You change it along the way. The last thing you want to do is, which I ended up doing, understanding the height of the dynamic panel and then using a variable to push everything. It becomes a nightmare. So you get it for free, but if you keep it in the same page, as soon as you start nesting those dynamic panels, for some weird reason, that push and pull capability goes away. But yes, you can definitely do that. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Can you make a change on one page and it affects something on the other page?
You can use masters for that. Is that what you mean? Like make a change here?
On a dynamic panel.
Oh, on a dynamic panel.
Yeah.
Okay. David, are you going to talk about something similar? Like modifying one dynamic panel and affecting others?
Maybe. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
You're talking about masters being able to have.
Yeah, that's what I said, masters.
So the dynamic panel will have to be inside a master, is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Okay, good. Any other questions? Okay. Is this a good kind of level? Yeah, good. Okay, good, cool. Sometimes I go crazy and show really interesting stuff, but could be a little crazy. Anyways, let's go to the next one. So let's leave those color ones. I kind of like them. Okay, so we went over one, we went over two. Actually, two really quick because 3 is gonna piggyback on 2. We're just dragging, so we do drag, and then we do drag with drag. You just move it with the drag. You pretty much, whatever coordinate you're moving to, you just take that with you. Okay, so the interesting thing about doing something like that is sometimes it's just so inconvenient, right? Like, where do I put it back? I don't remember if it was here or there. It's in my way, actually. So, number 3, what I'm asking you to do is drag and double click this. So when you double click, And by the way, this is the coordinate where it was before I started dragging it. And what you're about to see is at a 500 milliseconds rate. You ready? Off it goes. So what I'm doing is I'm starting to combine a few little things. Number one, I can drag it. We just learned how to drag it. But number two, I can double click it and I can apply some logic that once I double click it, it goes back to where it belongs. It goes back home. So I can do crazy stuff, throw it here, right there, double click, off it goes. Okay? How do I do that? Well, we already know how to drag it. Good. So let's think about the double click. So, can anyone guess what event I'm going to select here? A double click, yes. Okay, so on double click, okay, ooh, here we go. We have lots of bits and pieces. You can move, okay. You can, depending on how you decide to move it, you can determine the coordinates, and then you can determine some animation. So the click I showed you before, you could have animate, but I'm just taking you through a little journey. So I'm just giving you little by little every time. So just keep that in mind because that initial click could have been animated. Now that we learn how to drag, now that we know how to click, what's the next thing we can do? Well, so we're moving. Awesome. Where are we moving? Are we moving by or are we moving to? What? Moving by? Moving to? All right, simple. Moving to fixed coordinate on your Axure prototype. So this one, for example, we will be moving to this specific coordinate. Moving by, which I find it really useful, I use it quite a bit, is just move by 5 pixels. So sometimes you just need to have things grow and then come back and retract, and all you know is the height of how much, you know, maybe the thing on top is. So you just kind of have an idea. You don't know exactly what coordinate you want to move that thing, but you know that it's going to be 10 pixels that you want to move it by. Okay, so that's the difference. Move to and move by. So in this case, we're moving to. Where are we moving to? Can someone tell me what the x coordinate would be? I know it's very small. It's 25, 66. So what would be the x? Lovely math times. Yep, 25. Good old times with maths here. So yeah, it's 25 because that's where our x coordinate is. Our y coordinate would be 66. Okay? Now, if I were to change this from to by, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to start kind of going linear. I'm going to go 25 down, 66 over there, 25. So it's just going to go like that. So make sure that you always have the to or the by correctly. If not, just try it and then you'll see that it doesn't work and you'll come back and change it. All right, so animate. We have more options, but I just put the simple one. So you can animate by none, pretty much not, by swing, by linear, and by bounce. I usually just go for linear, but you can get fancy with bounce and stuff. Can anyone guess what this animation is? Linear, yeah, I always go for linear. I'll show you bounce. Why not? Well, I think from an interaction design perspective, we're just so used to linear. I think bounce, you really need to be communicating something completely different. Bounce helps to get people's attention, but you need to use it with caution because sometimes you just, yeah, it could go the wrong way. Anyway, so really quick, let's try this in Axure. Okay, so choose the right dynamic panel. Number 1, done. Again, we're gonna do a double click, which is, where are you? This is actually perfect. Where is my on double click? It's not there, okay? So when you cannot find that case, that interaction or event, there's more events here, okay? Sometimes people go, where did it go? So make sure you always expand this in case you're looking for something, and then you get the absolute full list, okay? So on double click, where are you? Ah, there it is. Thank you. Okay, so on double click, what are we doing on double click? We are moving. Are we moving the dynamic panel or the widget? We have to think of it as a widget, not as a dynamic panel, because we're not really interacting with those states that slides. No, it's just the whole thing. All right, so there we go. Which of all of this we're moving? Itself. This, yeah. Okay, and where are we moving it to or by? Is it by or to? To, very good. And is 2566. Okay, and the animation is linear. Off you go. Let's take a quick look. Come back here. Okay, double click. Now, double click and it goes back. Now keep in mind that I already have the click hooked up to do other things, but there we go. Now, let's do the same. Remember how I told you you can just quickly copy and paste? I'm just gonna take advantage, since this is so spontaneous, because I didn't prepare this, but it's working brilliantly. I'm going to, oh, here's another trick. Lovely tricks that I put together. I wanna copy and paste, but because that double click wasn't part of my original list, I cannot do it because I have to open it up and then say double click, and then it's forcing me into this experience. And I'm just like, I just wanna paste. So here's a little trick. I just pick the first one. I say, yeah, whatever, just put it somewhere. I don't care. So what it does, it raises up my double click. My double click is not hidden under that more events list. And then I can paste. So first I would just paste, and then I delete the stuff that I came up with, which I don't really need. All I needed is to just kind of bring that double click event up. Okay, good. The reason why I'm doing this one is I want to show you really quick other animations. So let's do the bounce, okay? Just so that you get a sense of it. So again, double click, move, double click. Whoa, did you see that? This is why I only use the linear. That's a little too much, isn't it? Okay, and then you can just play with the rest, okay? Pretty cool, isn't it? I find this extremely useful when I do mobile stuff, and sometimes I'm afraid that things may go out of bound. So it's always good to kind of have an exit and make sure you can drag things back where you can grab them. So, any questions? Claire, go ahead.
You know the sequence that they then specified, because it looked like when you dragged it, it did the on-click and changed the state.
Oh.
When it did the double click, or am I imagining that?
Yeah, no. That's a really good question. Very good question. The sequence is, so they honor the click, right? So that would be the first thing that gets honored. And that's why my slide changed. And as you double click, then they honor the double click. So let's do a little experiment. When I double click, are we gonna go 2 slides forward, right? So let's go back to, this is my, get out of my way. Okay, here we go. So here it goes. Remember, this is my slide 0. Then I have a slide 1 and 2. So I'm gonna double click. I'm gonna see which slide I'm gonna end up in. It honors 1 click, 2 clicks, and a double click. Okay. So I'm sorry.
It's registered a click.
Yeah.
And it's registered a double.
So it registers 2 single clicks and 1 double click. That's a really good question. This is when I start playing with Axure and I'm like, what? Go ahead.
With the dynamic panels, is it possible that it doesn't hide underneath them, so it recognizes like the edges, like there, you don't get like the kind of hidden effects. So the overlay, so it doesn't overlay.
Okay, so yes, so what you're saying is this right here. So if it's going under or over, right?
Yeah, so you can drag them, but it doesn't go like overlay or.
Yep. So a good question. So just like everything, we need to have a sense of layers. Everything needs to be placed within a 3-dimensional world. If you think about it, one is in front of the other one. However, can we do some logic to give priority to one of them? Absolutely, yes. So one of the things I do is, let's say I know my green dynamic panel needs to be absolute priority because that's going to hold some information that always needs to be present. You may not know where it is in all state of things. As you click, you can bring it forward. Okay, I'm going to show you that really quick. Wasn't planning to go over that, but I love questions like that. Okay, so when you click, you can look at all these different things, and one of them is bring to front or bring to back. So you can put that logic in there, and you can say, if I click, bring forward. And that way it would always guarantee that if you're interacting with it, you can definitely bring it forward. Does that answer your question? Cool. Any other questions? I love questions.
What have you got against swing?
I think it's an accessibility thing, maybe. Yeah, I don't know when does a swing work? Sometimes they do to call attention, like tutorials and things like that. But yeah.
So I always use swing. I never use linear.
Really?
Yeah, I always use
swing. I actually don't even know why.
Oh. Yeah, I was thinking of bounce. Yeah, swing and linear. That's a really good question. What's the difference? And I know it. Does anyone know?
Yeah. Swing has it decelerates towards the end.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, which is a cubic also decelerates at the end, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. That's a good one. I'll maybe send a little bit more info on that. And yeah, maybe it's just me keeping it simple. But yeah, good point. Very good point. Any other questions? Nope. Okay, good. We're getting there. Almost there. And then David. Yay. Okay, good. Let's go to number... Oh, this is a simple one. Number 4. Okay, this is a really cool one, but a little tricky one. I'll tell you why. Hide this after clicking on it. Ah! Off it went. Okay, how do we get this effect? We go to events. Okay, so we have an on-click because that's what triggered it. And in the many things you can choose, and before I show you like change the state, this one I'm just showing you something different. So again, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to lower the complexity of the Axure prototype and help you just focus on this, and then little by little you'll get to remember all of these bits. So on click, you hide. Where do you hide? This widget. Again, you don't need to remember, okay? All right, so word of warning. I love this feature. However, once you hide it, it's not there. And that means that you cannot bring it back unless you bring it back through triggering it some other thing that is actually there, okay? So be very careful, because many times I've done it, and then I'm like, oh, where did it go? I cannot bring it back. So it's literally not there. It disappears from the interface, okay? So there it goes. Any questions on that? All right, and now the last one. This is one I really like. Tinder this. Check it out. I'm gonna Tinder this. I just love London, okay? You can go swipe left, you can swipe right, swipe left, swipe right, okay? How cool is that? All right, you can get it really, really fast. And these are very good mobile gestures. So I'm just showing you this because I think this is something you would use on your day-to-day. So, okay, so I know the screen is a little far away from you, but any guess what event we should be using for this? On swipe, left or right? Well, it depends, right? Good. So what I show you is both. All right. So let's do swipe to the right. Okay. On swipe to the right. Let's do on swipe to the left. Yeah, there we go. That one works. Woo. Okay, good. So on swipe, very good. What do we set on swipe? Okay, so now we're going back into the dynamic panel. So before we did a few things that had to do just with the widget on itself, like the big thing here. That's the widget. But now is the dynamic panel, is that ability to go. Why? Because we're changing slides. We're just swiping left, swiping right. Okay, so we set this widget, okay, to which slide? Do we set it to the first one, the second one, the third one, the 0 one? Okay, so it depends which way we're going, right? All right. So if we're swiping left, right? I changed because that other one didn't work. We go previous. We have to go one before. Very good. All right. And then don't forget to wrap, because otherwise once you get to the end, you're not going to be able to interact with it anymore. Okay. Then animation. In this case, we got to make sure that we think about it. Is it going to slide to the left, slide to the right. So in this case, it slides left. Okay. Oh, me too. And it's lovely because then you're like get completely thrown off. You go, oh, it went to the wrong side. Okay. Yeah, there's things that sometimes you just do it and then you fix it. Okay. Now the time, again, Axure gives you 500 milliseconds, which is half a second by default. I usually just go for it. There's very few things that I just start playing with the milliseconds, but you know, for a beginner level, just stick with the 500 milliseconds. Now, animate out. Okay, so this is actually pretty interesting. Axure is asking you, what do I do with the slide that's leaving the scene, and what do I do with the slide that's entering the scene, right? Usually they should be doing the same thing, otherwise it's going to be extremely awkward. One of the things you can do is you can slide left and the other one goes up. That's going to look really funny. But hey, it's possible. You can do it. So for this Tinder kind of animation, keep it the same. So in this case, you want to slide left. Same with the timing. Don't get too fancy. Keep it the same. So it looks like they're all leaving at the same time. Okay? So 500. Cool. You want to see it in action? Cool. Let me show it to you. So pick the right dynamic panel. Okay, so this one, we're going to interact with the dynamic panel because we're changing it. That is slide concept. We're changing the state. We don't have to worry about what it's called. Ah, picked the wrong one. Okay, here we go. Oh, I picked it again. There we go. I picked the right one this time. Woo. Okay. I need to check my site. Let me just delete this. It's too far away. Okay. So, again, you go to, well, did we go left or right? Remind me. I think we went left. Yeah, left. So we go left, we go previous, we wrap, and then we animate to the left. Okay. Okay. We come here. Carousel. Oh, yeah. It's a little tricky, actually. This is a really good thing what just happened. Because I'm just putting all the logic in that one. I have a drag, so then Axure goes, do I drag or do I swipe? So for what I just saw, it looks like the drag takes over the swipe. So let me get rid of my drag here. Oop, perfect. Sometimes you just have to play with this. Okay, so did you see that? I have the animation going that way, and I still have that click from the previous story. Okay, so this is a good one because this you cannot just copy and paste when swipe right. What will happen if I just copy and paste on swipe right? It goes the wrong direction, right? So in this case, you just reopen it and make sure it just go to the right direction. And off you go, you get your Tinder effect. All right. Over time, so I better stop here. All right, I hope you learned a little something. These are really, really quick things we can put together in Axure, and I use them all the time when I'm prototyping, especially for mobile. So give them a try and send me any questions, or yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much.